Busy day. This is the vlog for January 4th, 2019. And busy day of sorts. So it was my buddy Gallen's birthday. And he's a pretty big Transformers geek. He grew up with some of the more modern shows. Well, they're modern in my mind, but Gatlin only turned 24 today, so he's a youngin'. When he was a very wee lad, um, he had Beast Wars, and when he was sort of older and able to digest television more, he had Transformers Armada and Energon. Now, I'm a big enough Transformers fan that I have trouble keeping track of which names are the American versions and which names are the Japanese versions. Because in 2000, actually specifically in 1999, Japan came out with a show called Transformers Car Robots. And it wasn't quite clear if it was going to come over to the United States or not, but eventually it did, and it was called Transformers Robots in Disguise. And it aired 2 episodes and then stopped for a long period of time. Because when the 3rd episode was supposed to air, terrorists flew a plane into the World Trade Center. Actually, they flew 2 planes into the World Trade Center. And in the very first episode of the show, the leader of the Decepticons bursts through a building. That imagery was not popular at the time. The show itself wasn't terribly great. It wasn't terribly bad. It was just sort of middling. It was definitely not up to the same standard as Beast Wars or Beast Machines, which had been running in the States previously at that time. So they sort of took things off the rails and put together a show in Japan called Transformers Micron Densetsu, which actually translates to Micron Legend, which was called Transformers Armada in the United States. And that was a departure. It involved mini-cons, which a lot of people like to think of as Transformer Pokemon, that plug into the larger robots and give them special abilities. It was an interesting play pattern, a little bit kiddie, and it caused some of the toys to have a bit too many gimmicks and not enough basic posability, but it kept the series moving forward. After that, we had Transformers Superlink in Japan, which was Energon in America. Superlink was about taking multiple Transformers and fusing them together into new characters, or at least powered up versions of existing characters. And after that was Transformers Galaxy Force. Now, Galaxy Force was a big step up. Armada had been a traditional, Micron Densetsu had been a traditional cell animated show. Superlink Energon had a mix of regular cell animation and CG, but the CG in Galaxy Force was on a whole new level, basically. It was much stronger, it was much more easy to watch. Still not quite at the same level as Mainframe, what they did with Beast Machines, but it was interesting. Now, what's also interesting is that in Japan, Armada and Superlink were sort of nominally connected, but not terribly so. They kept track of a few plot points from the original series, but also went in all sorts of directions. But Galaxy Force actually was a standalone show. It wasn't meant to tie into anything. Originally, it had been planned to have sort of a connection to the Micron Densetsu and Superlink shows, but Galaxy Force was its own thing in the end. Not so in America. When it was called Transformers Cybertron in the States, it was tacked on as a final chapter in the Unicron trilogy. Unicron only appeared briefly at the end of Armada and throughout Energon, and not at all in Cybertron, so calling it the Unicron trilogy is sort of a weird thing, but that's what it's called these days. I say all this because it was a weird time for Transformers. A lot of people didn't think Transformers was going to come back in any sort of meaningful way. Beast Wars sort of raised eyebrows. And a lot of people who were young at the time, Gatlin included, and a host of his contemporaries, were rightfully impressed. It did some interesting things. It was a good kid show. It had some very interesting plot points. It had some serious episodes that were quite memorable. But then Beast Machines didn't do the same sort of thing and was not nearly as popular. And the two Japanese spin offs of Beast Wars were never released in America, and I don't think they would have been a big hit if they had been. So then you have the Car Robots, Robots in Disguise show, and the Unicron trilogy. Transformers wasn't, super successful at this point, and it was facing some stiff competition from Star Wars toys, which were also made by Hasbro, and Hasbro didn't want to make too many toys for boys at that time. So what could have happened? Well, for better or worse, Michael Bay made some movies. That is largely considered the reason for the immense resurgence of the Transformers brand over the last 10 years. These movies have sold toys by the truckloads, well, until recent years, and simultaneously reinvigorated older fans with older versions of the property. The IDW comics, which are based heavily on the G1 storytelling of the cartoon and the old Marvel comics, ran side by side with the Transformers films, and they gave people like me a chance to really get into the things that they liked about Transformers, while the newer fans were getting what they wanted from the movies and shows like Transformers Prime and the new Robots in Disguise, because that's couldn't be more confusing. And now it's being rebooted again, maybe. Bumblebee's a great movie. We went and saw it for Gatlin's birthday, so I've seen it twice now, and I feel fine giving my money to that movie, with the one caveat that I'm a little worried that Tencent is getting any percentage of my ticket shares, but that's what it is. I wonder if we can keep it going. I wonder if Transformers can have yet another resurgence. I wonder if this will bring on a new era of G1 likeness, if it will restore people's belief that Transformers can be more than just really long toy commercials. I don't know. I do know that I'm still putting them in boxes and getting ready to set them off into storage, but that's my life. I'm Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.